What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Kari, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on SneakerPhetish. Knockoff sneakers have been around as long as we can remember, and it's kind of been one of those things that have either been a collector's item or something severely frowned upon, depending on what kind of sneaker collector you're talking to. If you guys were around back in the day to see some of these more famous knockoffs take off, you guys remember sneakers like the Zosho from Lugs, or the Spizike from Fubu, or even that Shaq sneaker that looked like an Air Jordan 3. The more popular ones, like of course the RE Menthol 10s that look like the Air Force One mixed with a box of Newports, or of course the Bathing Ape Vapor stuff. And while these companies like Phat Farm were dabbling with these different designs, Nike and all the big brands were in the background either trying to suit people or trying to come up with ways to make these situations and these designs actually work in their favor. As the years have progressed, so have the knockoffs. And today we're here to talk about a case study, if you will, involving a designer from Jersey City, New Jersey, his line, and we actually have one of his sneakers to look at today, some comparisons of some other sneakers, and why I personally feel, number one, that the sneakers are trash, and number two, that if he gets sued by Nike, I don't feel that bad about it. This is a patent, whereas this is a trademark. Now, the difference between the two is that a trademark basically covers the design of a shoe, and it actually explains the general design of the shoe, like stitching, where certain materials are and where certain panels are. Whereas a patent is actually a very valuable piece of intellectual property that actually breaks down not just each panel and portion of the upper and the lower portion of a sneaker, but it also breaks down the functionality of a shoe, diameter, certain measurements, and things of that nature. Not only that, but it also cites references to any portion of the sneaker that may bear resemblance to that particular product, in this case, sneaker. Now, what you're looking at right here is the original design patent for the Air Jordan 7 owned by Tinker Hatfield. By the way, Tinker has a lot of design patents. This right here, the design patent for the Air Jordan 11, also owned by Tinker Hatfield. The Air Jordan 13 patent, also owned by Tinker Hatfield. On and on and on. You guys get the point. Now, this is the original design patent for the Air Force One sneaker. You guys are looking at the sole of the Air Force One sneaker design patent. Now, the interesting thing about this, as I mentioned, is that it has to cite all the references of all the portions of the shoe that bear resemblance to something else. Now, this actually bears resemblance to a patent that was actually issued back in 1899. And what you're looking at right there is the original rubber heel patent made by some people all the way back in 1899. So even in 1984, when this design patent was issued, they had to reference a design from 1899. Now, here's the thing about patents. Patents are only good for 14 years, or 15, 14, something like that. But they're only good for a certain amount of time. Trademarks are very similar to that as well. You only have a finite amount of time before it expires. Now, everybody knows the story of Bape and Nike, and about how Nike tried to sue Bape, and Bape somehow skirted around the laws between Japanese laws and American laws, and they were able to make the Air Force One. And everybody understands that that's the reason why they were able to get away with it. However, I want to tell you guys a story about another company that actually set a precedent for the reason why Air Force Ones are, first of all, marked the way they are today, and why they're treated the way they are today. If you guys were around in 2002, you remember that Nelly came out with a song called Air Force Ones, and it was an incredibly popular song that took the world by storm and actually raised the price of the Air Force One sneaker. To this day, the all-white Air Force One continues to be one of my favorite sneakers that I always got to keep a fresh, brand new pair of in my collection. But in 2008, there was a rapper that claimed to be the first to do everything ever on earth, whose name was Soulja Boy, that actually came out with another song for another brand that he was starting to get hooked up with that was actually making a knockoff Air Force One, and that brand was called Yums. He even had a little commercial. He had a song that he came out about it, and the song actually was on his I Soulja Boy Tell 'Em album. It's called With My Yums On. He was all in as far as influencing people to buy these sneakers that looked eerily similar to Air Force Ones. Well, in July of 2009, Nike sued the brand Yums, or their parent company, which was called Already LLC, for copyright infringement, trademark dilution, and confusion in the marketplace. The exact same things that they continue to sue people like Warren Lotus for in 2021. Nike sued the brand for trademark infringement. They claimed that they designed the shoe in 1982 called the Air Force One. I showed you guys the design patent that was was issued back in the early 80s. Nike held that patent. However, the patent had expired. Now, Nike said that even though it expired, they claimed to hold several federal trademarks, including a trademark that they called the 905 registration. That's because the registration number was 3.451.905. Now, this is where the story gets a little interesting and a little bit murky. So what ended up happening after that was that 1's ended up countersuing Nike for an ad that Nike ran in a Teen Vogue magazine that had to do with what they called delicious training. It featured Serena Williams back in her short curly hair days and some other athletes as well, and it actually had the word yum in really big letters on some of those ad spaces. Now, yum was very close to the word Yums that Already LLC owned, and while they were being sued by Nike, they ended up countersuing back for two things. Number one, they wanted to sue for copyright infringement against their own brand, and number two, they wanted to claim that the trademark that Nike owned for the Air Force One wasn't valid because it had expired. Well, Nike at that point realized that they were in a little bit of hot water, so they came out with something called a covenant not to sue. Basically what that means is that they dropped their case against Already LLC, DBA 1's, but 1's was not able to countersue at that point for anything. Nike basically said, hey, listen, you got the Air Force One, you can have it, you can take it, but you also can't sue us for anything that we do either. It was a smart move and a slick play by some high-paid lawyers, but it worked. Now, Already LLC ended up fighting that case all the way up to the Supreme Court, but because of a matter that they call mootness, where the court was basically moot because of the covenant not to sue by Nike, the case was rendered faultless and ended up being thrown out eventually. All that to say that 1's actually just announced in May of 2021 that they were back, coming out with a couple of new pairs of sneakers that Soulja Boy also was going to sign back on with the brand as an ambassador, and they were coming out with more sneakers that look like Air Force Ones. But that, boys and girls, is why the Air Force One in its original form is pretty much fair game for a lot of people these days. Designers like John Geiger have taken obvious inspiration from the iconic Air Force One sneaker, and a lot of people have wondered why Nike has never gone after Geiger. Well, the reason is because at this point, because of that covenant not to sue and the precedent that was established through that landmark case, basically, who's gonna come after him at this point? Because they really can't. However, to protect themselves for the future, Nike ended up tweaking the design of the Air Force One just a little bit to re-register a lot of the paperwork and ended up calling the new sneaker the Air Force One 07. 07, of course, being the year that all the paperwork was done and all the legalities were established in order to have this new sneaker. And that is why chances are if you buy an Air Force One these days, they're going to be called an Air Force One 07, not just an Air Force One. Now I'd like to introduce you to Nikwan Arvinger, and if you don't know who that is, I'll call him Kool Kiy. Now, Mr. Arvinger actually started his career off by making a lot of vintage t-shirts and things of that nature. He actually was over 3 different brands, a brand called Originals, a brand called Rock Hard Vintage, and a brand called Club Foreign. Now, Originals was his most famous brand to date. You guys may have seen the Support Black Colleges t-shirts and sweatshirts that look like 1990s hip-hop inspired stuff. That's his brand. He owns the brand, and we all know he owns the brand because he actually sued his cousin a couple of years back for actually taking the name of Support Black Colleges, and his cousin actually established Support Black Colleges LLC, which was a separate company that actually infringed on his company. He ended up throwing the case out, possibly because they were family. I guess he was just trying to scare his cousin, shake him up a little bit, and get him to shut down the business. But because of that, he actually maintained the rights to Originals and to Support Black Colleges. So that's his thing. I'll give him that. Nikwan or Kai, whatever you want to call him, he fancies himself an original designer, but he actually ended up getting really famous by making this sneaker that I actually want to take a look at today. And we're starting with the box here. Now on the box, you guys can see that this says Air Kai with his trademark lightning bolt. Now, this sneaker is actually made by Rêve or something like that. Basically, it means dream in French, which is another company, Rêve Sport LLC, that Mr. Arvinger also owns. So basically, the brand is Rêve, that you guys can see on the back of the box here, and the name of the sneaker is the Air Kai by Rêve. Now, let's take a quick look at the box here. So, the box itself is pretty standard. It's not bad. I mean, it's got some interesting stuff on here. I know a lot of people really love the Air Kai. We're going to talk about the incredible demand for his sneaker that still boggles my mind. But inside of the shoebox here, you get this dust bag here. You also get basically a neon orange shoelace. I'm sure it's different colors and different sneakers here. And you get a little bit of paper here that says Air Kai, and that's pretty much it. Let's take a look at the shoe. Boom. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Air Kai, obviously inspired by the Shadow Air Jordan 1. Just holding this sneaker in my hand is just crazy to me because obviously, this sneaker looks exactly like an Air Jordan 1. And so what ended up happening was that Mr. Arvinger actually, what we call in the hood, hit a lick by creating these sneakers that look exactly like Air Jordan 1s and selling them for $300 a pop. The only problem was that according to the Better Business Bureau's 23 complaints and its F rating on the website, a lot of people weren't even able to get their hands on the sneaker because he would take pre-orders and never fulfill them. Let's take a look at the shoe. Now, as far as the shoe itself goes, like I mentioned, on the outside, it looks like a pretty decent sneaker. But when you really look closely, you can tell that this sneaker is actually very low quality. You have a little reveille there around the collar of the sneaker. That's all well and good. The leather is okay, I guess, but I'll be honest with you, down here in the eyelets and the quarter panels, you can really feel how cheap the leather is. The leather is very, very cheap. It's not very plush. It doesn't have a lot of give to it. It's pretty cheap. One thing I also can't stand is the big lightning bolt that takes place of the swoosh. And the reason is because somehow, I guess he couldn't get the lightning bolt to stay stitched down at the front. So it just kind of hangs off the shoe kind of haphazardly. Taking the top down, look at the shoe here. You get black laces with these. You get the same nylon tongue that you would get from an Air Jordan 1. You get the same type of Nike Air tongue tag that you would get from an Air Jordan 1, except this time it says Air Kai. And the leather here in the toe box seems a little bit softer than the really cheap black leather, but it's not that much better, trust me. Now on the midsole, he has an aged midsole. I believe the shoe came like that with that aged midsole, but I want to take a little deeper look at the midsole here because if you guys notice, on regular Air Jordan 1s, this actually should be a straight line where the black is and where the midsole ends when the black begins here down in the outsole. But the outsole here seems to be painted very oddly. It's not even at all, so that's definitely an issue with the quality and the way this sneaker was made. Speaking of the way this sneaker was made, there are two things about this shoe that I find absolutely hilarious, and that's the quality of the outsole and the quality of the insole. Now, this is the insole from the Air Kai. It has that same reveille, or however you say it, on the insole, but the problem is it's extremely cheap. This insole is one of the cheapest insoles I think I've ever seen on a sneaker before. Look at how it just completely folds in. I mean, what kind of support are you getting with this? Absolutely none. Y'all are paying $300 for an insole that looks like this. That's crazy. Oh, but that's not all. This is my favorite part here, is how cheap this outsole is on this sneaker here. So let's take a look at this outsole because this right here really took the cake. Now on the outside of the outsole, you see the Air Kai in the midfoot here. And if you notice, whenever he holds the sneaker, he always holds it very carefully like this when he's showing it to people. And again, on the outside, it looks like a very well-made sneaker. But what he's not showing you guys is just how easily this completely folds in or pushes out when you just squeeze on it just a little bit. Look at how much give that outsole has on it. That is extremely, extremely cheap quality for a $300 for a sneaker, period, especially a $300 sneaker. For comparison, I just picked up an Air Jordan 1. I just had it on the floor here. But if I apply that same pressure to the Air Jordan 1, right, you guys see my fingers going white here. I cannot push that out. I'm trying to push that out. I can't push it out. But with not even nearly as much force, this pushes out completely. And you guys see what I'm talking about here when I talk about the lack of quality between the Air Kai and the Air Jordan 1. You guys are paying $300 for this. It looks the same. It looks like somebody blowing their cheek out. This is without a doubt one of the cheapest, most cheaply made sneakers I've ever seen or ever had on this channel before. I bought sneakers that were $60 from a racist man that were a lot better quality than these sneakers here. So first of all, Kai, if you ever see this, Your sneaker's trash, my guy. I'm sorry to tell you, but the quality of it is terrible, and you know the quality of it is terrible. Now that we've taken a look at these sneakers, let's get back to the story. So Kool Kiy comes out with these shoes, and they take the world by storm. Now, again, we're living in the age of hype these days. So I know a lot of people ended up looking at the shoes. They thought they were cool. They thought they were different. And again, we're in an age right now where you have Fugazi Air Jordan 1s and all these different Air Jordan 1 knockoffs. Air Jordan 1 knockoffs are super popular right now. And obviously Kool Kiy wanted to jump on the trend and make something that made a lot of noise. So it actually started working for him. He started doing pop-up shops from state to state, going around making a lot of different colorways of the sneaker, different things like that. And this man was making a lot of money. He's still probably making a lot of money. But again, the problem was that not everybody was getting their sneaker. You guys can Google anywhere on the internet right now and take a look at how many complaints there are about people that never got their sneakers because what he was doing at his pop-up shops was taking pre-orders, majority on his sneakers. Now, there's also talk that he was actually giving some people pairs and kind of backdooring pairs of these sneakers, and people were actually reselling these sneakers for $500 to $800, which if you ever pay $500 to $800, that is, I feel really bad for you because these sneakers aren't even worth the $300 retail price that's on them, not even half that. But needless to say, obviously there was some foul play. He was getting some celebrities that were signing on, people like Bun B, stuff like that. I'm sure people that he was giving nice size checks to endorse his products. Jadakiss was wearing his jackets, all this other type stuff. But apparently behind the scenes, what was going on was that he was using the money from his pre-orders to finance his next pop-up shop or his next stop or his next thing or his next BMW or his next Rolex. And so that, boys and girls, is what we call a Ponzi scheme, when you're taking money from one thing and using it to pay something else off instead of actually doing what you're supposed to do with the money, which is fulfilling everybody's orders that they're making for your product. So that's illegal. Oh, but speaking of legality, did I tell you that he was actually named in a suit that actually had a judgment against it for $3 million? Let's get into that for a second. If you look at Kool Kiy's Instagram right now, he's been flexing these new sneakers that he's supposed to be coming out with in a partnership with Dodge. And he talks about how he has some labels with Dodge and he's doing some official work with Dodge and he's done official work with all these HBCUs and things of that nature. Let me break down what's going on here. First of all, he's just licensing. He's just buying the rights to license these names. Just like how if you buy something that has Mickey Mouse's face on it, it may not have Disney's tag on it. Disney licensed the likeness of Mickey Mouse to 1,000 different companies out here for a fee. That's what he's doing. Only problem is that he's not really the one doing it. He's doing it underneath another LLC, which is called Posh Clothing. Now, let's dig into Posh Clothing a little bit. Posh Clothing is a clothing line that's owned by a guy named Pasha. And I don't know exactly where Pasha is from, but Pasha has this line called Posh Clothing. Well, back in the day, a couple of years ago, there was a lawsuit against Pasha because Pasha is a lover of foreign cars, and so Pasha did a collaboration with Club Foreign that of course is owned by Kai, aka Mr. Arvinger, and they were sued by Audi AG, Bentley Motor Corp, and Volkswagen Group of America for $3 million, and you'll never guess what they got sued for. Trademark infringement. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, if you want my opinion, I think that they're using a lot of this money that's coming from these Kool Kiy sneakers right now to pay off this $3 million judgment. So Kool Kiy found himself in a little bit of legal trouble, and I don't really know what the restitution looks like in order to pay off that $3 million, but I'm pretty sure that finessing your customers right now, taking their money out of it, I'm sure it's got to be going somewhere, and it surely isn't going to filling all the pre-orders. Well, in typical Nike form, Nike laid low and was watching Kool Kiy and a lot of other companies like One in the Chamber, Fugazi, all these other different companies that were making these knockoff versions of Air Jordan 1s, and just recently filed for a new trademark with the design of the Air Jordan 1 sneaker. Now, this is pretty big. This is landmark because now Nike officially owns this likeness and this drawing. Looks a whole lot like that shoe right there, doesn't it? This silhouette has been one that a lot of people felt like they could get away with for a long time because this particular paperwork wasn't officially filed. Now that the paperwork has been filed, there also is a first use and a first use in commerce date of 1985, April of 1985 to be exact. What exactly does that mean? That means that if Nike chooses to sue anybody, they can claim that they've owned this design and that it was first in commerce from 1985. However, it's also pretty smart that they didn't do a design patent on this because, as I mentioned before, if they did a design patent, they would have had to reference any other shoe that's been made out there or maybe a patent has been on that bear the likeness of this sneaker? Why go through all that when you can just own the trademark? This way you can sue anybody that uses this design. Now, there's been an uproar in the YouTube community and the sneaker community between a famous YouTuber who calls himself Omi In A Hellcat and To Kool Kiy, for To Kool Kiy actually coming in between Omi actually trying to make his own sneaker. So Omi pledged that he was going to make a sneaker that basically looked exactly like Kai's sneaker, and he was going to make his own sneaker now, and it was going to look like an Air Jordan 1, but it's not really a Jordan 1, and now he wants to do something that looks like an Air Max 96 and all this other type of stuff. But at the end of the day, if Omi's not careful, he's going to wind up getting himself sued too, which I don't know why Omi would want to bring that on himself, considering that he just got busted by the feds, who came and confiscated a lot of the things that he had for running an illegal streaming service that he was selling in mass quantities across the country to people. But when you're in the game of hype, sometimes hype wins, especially if it's making you a big bag of money really, really quickly. So here we are. The question of the day is Nike going to sue To Kool Kiy, number one? And number two, Kari, why are you getting on a black-owned business like this? Well, I've got an answer for both of those. Number one, yes, I think that Nike is going to sue To Kool Kiy. I think that Nike is going to shut down anybody who's making any likenesses of this sneaker and any other sneaker that they hold trademarks on. But as we have seen in cases like Warren Lotus, as we have seen in other cases, especially with bootleggers overseas, Nike tends to take their time because they're very methodical with how they want to sue people. Now, brands like Yums caught a bit of a break, a bit of a legal loophole. Now, that came back and bit them in the behind, because while they were trying to do a case against Nike, Nike came back with the covenant not to sue and actually ended up messing them up really, really bad. So I doubt that anybody is going to have a leg to stand on trying to countersue Nike. Like Kai doesn't have a leg to stand on with this sneaker against Nike. He's just not going to win that case, period. Now, what I will say also is that it does seem like Kai has been trying to transition away from the sneaker a little bit by doing things like pop-ups with t-shirts and trying to get back to maybe other forms of merch. Now, there's another designer who calls himself SIA that actually mentioned one day on an Instagram story that he had been trying to help Kai out to keep him out of trouble, but Kai wouldn't listen, and he continued to show these sneakers and to make these particular sneakers that look just like Jordan 1s. Now, what I can say about SIA is that while SIA's designs are not necessarily my cup of tea most of the time, they are original designs. Now, I say that with a bit of a caveat because SIA himself has come out with an Air Jordan 1 looking sneaker that he might want to be careful of as well as some Adidas Boost You Wear looking sneakers as well that held an interesting resemblance to some other shoes as well. But that's not even the best part. He's gotten away from making knockoff Air Jordan 1s to making another knockoff sneaker because he just recently showed the outsole of a runner that he's been working on for a very long time. I'm talking about Kai. But that sneaker actually looks exactly like the MGSM women's runner sneaker that's an Italian sneaker company. So he just went from knocking off one sneaker to completely ripping off the outsole of another sneaker and saying that it's something that he's been cooking for months. The scam continues. So yes, I'm pretty sure that Nike is going to eventually go after people like To Kool Kiy, and he may not even be the only person that Nike goes after. Nike may go after To Kool Kiy and Fugazi and everybody else that's been making these bootleg Air Jordan 1s that they can possibly find out here. Remember, guys, in the bootleg case that they just came out with against a bunch of Chinese sellers, Nike themselves ordered a bunch of the sneakers under a fake name using a different type of address, so people didn't know that it was Nike, so that they can inspect the sneaker for themselves. So be careful if you guys are making sneakers that look like this, because there's a very good chance that one of your customers was Nike and you didn't even realize it. Now, the second question that I've been getting from a lot of people before I decided to make this video is, why are you bashing a black-owned business? And that's a simple answer, because this does not represent what I believe good black business is out here. Business is business to me at the end of the day, and the quality of your product means everything to me. I don't care if you're white, yellow, purple, or blue. If you come out with a shoddy product that looks like this, I'm gonna clown you for it on this channel. And Kai, you made a shoddy product, my guy. You finessed a lot of people, including the original owner of this sneaker, because this is not my shoe. But the original owner of this sneaker, man, I apologize to you for paying the $300 that you paid for the sneaker, because in my opinion, it's just not worth it. Now, again, to be a part of the hype train, which I truly believe is the only reason why people would throw down $300 on this. Hey, if you want to be a part of the hype train, be a part of the hype train, be a part of the movement. That's on you. But don't say that you buy this sneaker to support black business, because like I mentioned, this ain't the kind of black business that I'm looking to support. I don't support scammers. I don't support Ponzi schemers. I don't support pyramid scammers. I don't support people that take money from other people, their hard-earned money, and most of the time doesn't even deliver on what they were supposed to have. I don't get down with that. That's just me. I want better and I want more creativity out here when it comes to making sneakers, guys. Don't take the lazy route and take the Jordan 1 just because you know it's popping and throw something on it to replace the swoosh and think that you're doing enough. You're not doing enough. Nike owns this design. Nike owns the stitching on these. Nike owns the silhouette. They own the way that the panels look. They own all of this. They own a lot more than the swoosh that's on that shoe. And one way or another, Nike is going to make sure that y'all understand that they own a lot more than the swoosh that's on this shoe. Now, to wrap this up, my personal opinions about Omi, I think that Omi shoes are trash too. I just can't get down with people that continue to take that lazy route instead of truly creating something new in the space here. Now, I'm not mad at you paying homage, but at the same time, if you're gonna pay homage, make sure you do it with quality and make sure that you do it with a super creative touch that isn't just slapping something where the swoosh used to be on the shoe. I want us to win out here. I want black businesses to continue to flourish out here, but not like this. Then again, Virgil Abloh said it best, design is the freshest scam. And here we are. All right, guys, listen, that's pretty much all that I got to say about these. Now I want you guys to sound off down in the comments and let me know what you guys think about the Air Kai, about Mr. Arvinger as a whole, about his businesses. If you've ordered from him, let me know if you've gotten your shoes yet or any of your product that you've ordered from Kool Kiy, or if you've gotten your Air Kais. Let me know if the quality of these is the same as the quality of maybe your pair or other pairs that you've seen out here. Let me know what you guys think. Am I tripping and I in the wrong? Sound off down below if you feel like I'm in the wrong and I should just be supporting this black businessman because he's a black businessman, or if you agree with me and that quality matters out here and originality matters out here. Sound off down below. I'm interested to know. Of course, write it down in the comments. Make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family to make sure you don't miss out on any more shoes that come through, because I guarantee you I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here down SneakerPhetish, taking a look at these with me, unboxing them with me for a couple of minutes. I go by the name of Kari. This is the Kool Kiy, Air Kai, Hervé, Paris, Air Jordan 1 Lightning Bolt, whatever this thing is called. And until next time, I'm out.